Our scripture this morning is taken from John 1 through 12. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things were created through him, and apart from him, not one thing was created that has been created. Life was in him, and that life was the light of men. That light shines in the darkness, yet the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man named John who was sent from God. He came as a witness to testify about the light, so that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but he came to testify about the light. The true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming to the world. He was in the world, and the world was created through him. Yet the world did not recognize him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, he gave them the right to be the children of God, to those who believe in his name.
The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God. I was just thinking that perhaps I should have put my sermon on some nice hard cardboard so it would blow away. So if I lose a piece of paper to the wind, it'll be a shorter sermon. You probably heard this. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Right? The opening lines in Star Wars movies back in the 70s. Think about it, it was quite the opening line. It was really iconic for that movie series, all of them. You think George Lucas, who was the author of that and a storyteller, he was pretty good, but he wasn't the only storyteller. And Pastor Rebecca told me that all of you folks are working on, praying about, and writing down your own soul story. How you came to faith. How your faith has grown. And so I thought that perhaps it would be appropriate for me to tell you my soul story. And when I thought about that, I thought, well, yes, it's an old story, being as old as I am. So we sang a few hymns this morning, but the other hymn that I was thinking about is number 156. I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and his glory, of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story because I know it's true. Now, the story of God's love is definitely the most powerful, the most important story that we should hear and share. Not a question. But the gospel reading is from John's gospel. If you think about it, that was John's soul story, because it's about how he knew Jesus, how he came to faith in Jesus. And so his gospel was his soul story. If you think about it, he opened up with the most important summary of his whole concept, saying, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, John's gospel sounds very much like the first book of Genesis, talking about creation, how it all started, how God started the whole thing. And so he goes back to creation. Before creation, the Word was with God, before anything else. Now, the experts would tell you that John's gospel is a bit different than the other three, and that John has a, quote, high Christology. Now, in plain English, what that means is that John really thought of Jesus as truly divine, he put the story of Jesus on a much higher level than the others. He didn't consider Jesus simply a carpenter's kid, but God himself. So it was a unique story for John, different than the other Gospels. It was personal yet cosmic. Everyone's story is unique and personal. So John's story is good to learn and read, but it's not our story. So you have to ask yourself, how is your faith? How is your soul doing? Is it healthy? Is it growing? When you think about that, sometimes you think about the circumstances around coming to faith in Jesus. One thing I've learned over the years is no two people have the same story. They're all a bit different, unique to each person. To me, my story is that every important event in my life was surrounded by Christ in one way or another. When I was an infant some 70 years ago, I knew Jesus as a loving God. My parents are both very religious people in church every week. And the 5 kids, my brother and sister, and not myself, when we learned to speak, we were learning how to pray. Jesus has been with me all my life. My parents and my grandparents, my entire family is very religious, church-going folk. They had a very strong influence on my faith development, as did the parish priest, who was a good friend of my father's. Father Bob was there for all our family get-togethers, and especially Christmas. When I was about 7, I remember saying my night prayers, and I was thanking God for the family that he put me in, for being born in this family. And I was thanking God, and I felt a real true presence of him in my bedroom. As though he was standing there and his light shone. It was at that time I promised that I would, out of gratitude, I would become a priest. That stayed with me for quite some time. When I went to high school, it was a Roman Catholic seminary. That spiritual development was a very important aspect of my high school education. We had Mass every day and Bible study, along with English and Math and all the other subjects. And one of the most important people that also influenced me at that time, helped me with my style of preaching, was Bishop Fulton Sheen. Now, if you folks may remember him on TV a few years ago, he was my bishop when I was in high school, and he was very flamboyant in person as well as on TV. He definitely influenced not only me, but my high school very much. And my goal of ordination from age 7 continued with me through high school and college. I attended John Fisher at the seminary. It was during the Vietnam War. I was very involved in all the anti-war protests. And part of my seminary training was to get involved in some kind of social ministry, and so I volunteered with the Red Cross in their migrant outreach to the migrant camps around the Rochester area. And so I visited a lot, and I think for me, I learned compassion by volunteering in those migrant camps. I remember too, at that time, I was reconsidering the celibate life of a Catholic priest and decided that perhaps I would leave for a while. But I did so over several months, and I remember one night praying in the chapel. And I was asking God for some sort of direction, that some sort of verification that it was okay for me to leave the seminary for a while. And during that prayer, again, I felt his presence with me like I did when I was 7. I knew then that he had other plans for me. And So yes, I left the seminary, but I had no idea where I was going or what I was going to do. So I finished college with a degree in sociology, which is kind of worthless when it comes to getting a job. So I ended up getting an apprentice program at Kodak that my father found for me. It was about that same time that I met my first wife. We were married within a year with a child on the way. First several years of my marriage and career were fairly normal. But after a while, things started to decline, both my wife's mental health and our relationship. To be honest, we were not evenly yoked. She did not have the same education that I did. I attended Mass every Sunday, but she felt that she didn't really care for all that, quote, superstition, as she called it. She did not attend her parents' church. She did not attend any church. So we weren't well suited. So you can say there's many highs and lows in my life. But I remember too that during that time I was trying to figure out who and what am I going to be, remembering the promise I made at 7. The next big step in my spiritual development probably came when I moved to Medina. And moving to Medina was probably my sister's fault. And the story is that on Christmas Eve service in Millville United Methodist Church, my sister was sitting in her pew and she noticed the woman ahead of her, a single mom, was there without her kids that were usually with her. My sister thought, well, maybe my brother Mike and her would have something in common because I too was a single parent of 3 kids. Well, she introduced us, and probably a year after we were introduced, we were dating and trying to blend 6 kids in the 2 of us. Her 3 and my 3. We were the Brady Bunch. The kids got along a lot better than we did because we were both in charge in our former marriages. We were the ones who called the shots. Well, we butted head a few times, deciding where to put the salt and pepper. But we did it with a lot of prayer. A lot of prayer because, yes, we both were devout Christians. I think that was one of the things that I would look for in a new wife, was someone who had a strong faith. That was so important and so missing in my first marriage. I remember too spending time with Millville Church, and we had the adult Bible study that went with my wife, and we would have Bible study and coffee hour at people's homes. And I remember one night this woman asked me to quote a verse from Romans. I was a bit embarrassed. They all knew that I was in seminary for many years, but I had no idea what the verse was. I hadn't memorized that. I was familiar with it, but I couldn't quote it. I didn't memorize it. Well, that week went out, I bought a new Bible. So I never know these things. And so they poked and prodded me, and I realized that I needed to get back on track. The other thing that I was interested in, I was watching the pastor and his wife as they participated in the worship service. I really was intrigued in how this man, this pastor, and his wife were in ministry together. He was going on vacation once. He asked me, he says, well, you've been in seminary, why don't you preach for me next week? I'm going on vacation. I go, okay. I was scared stiff. I hadn't done that before. So I preached a horrible sermon. I thanked the people for bearing with me. I was nervous, but I got it done. And then he came back from vacation. He says, I made a horrible mistake. He says, you're supposed to be a lay speaker to preach. You're also supposed to be a United Methodist. I was neither. So he decided to become United Methodist. I did. Now, at the same time, my career at Kodak was getting questionable because they were shutting things down and whatnot. Even though I had a valuable job working at computers at making film and whatnot. But I needed to do something different and look for different kind of computer jobs. And so my supervisor set me up with a career counselor. And first meeting, we sat down. She asked me some questions about who I was and gave me this form to fill out, 100 questions, yes or no kind of thing about who I was and what I would like to do. Well, a month later, I went back to my second interview with her. And before she looked at my assignment, she says, "You should be in ministry." Now, and that surprised me. I was expecting to work for Microsoft or something, computer job. She's going, "You should be in ministry." And she goes, "What I want you to do between now and our next meeting is to do something about that." Well, yes, I was surprised, but then again, not really, because I'm having the dreams and daydreams about who am I, what am I doing, why am I in this place that I'm at, why did he put me here, what am I supposed to be doing? And so her comment was surprising, but then again, it was a confirmation. So yes, my second assignment, go do something about it. I did. That Sunday in church, I talked to the district superintendent's secretary, who happened to be the pastor's wife, and said, "I need to go to work. Time for me to go to work." Within a few months, I was an unlicensed pastor, learning as I went. On my role, going to where I had dreamed about all my life, about being an ordained pastor. Now, being a United Methodist, I could be both a husband and a pastor. My dreams, they come true. I've been a pastor now for over 20 years. And I've been in a variety of congregations, variety of locations throughout Western New York. One thing is true, every place that I've been, I've learned from the people. Yes, there's all sorts of paperwork, like we're doing paperwork today. But more importantly, I grew spiritually, getting to know the members of those churches, to know where they were coming from, to learn from them. And so too, you have a story. You all have a story. It's important to share that story. My story is an old story, but I know that God has been with me through it all, highs and lows and changes, challenges. And I think it's been through retrospection that I've gained clarity. You look back and you say, "Oh, that's why that happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago," to put you where you are today, to be who you can be for Jesus Christ, wherever you may be. So God does guide us each and every day. Sometimes it's fairly subtle. And other times, he slaps you upside the head and says, "Get to work." I'm anxious for you to share your stories as well. Amen.
During our collections, the ushers will be handing you a ballot for the charge conference, so make sure you get a ballot. And if you need a pencil, let the ushers know. They'll give you a pencil, otherwise you can use the one in your car.
now we're doing the business of the this morning. I have in front of me a document that's called Form 104. All that exciting labels. But what this basically is a document that I will be signing, that we have talked about what this is, so I'll read it. And then you got your ballots where you just check yes or no. We'll collect the ballots, and it says here that it is someplace here, a 2/3 vote that you approve Pastor Rebecca to be licensed. And so she has all the other stuff done. She just needs this hunk of paper in their file cabinet. So hopefully it'll be fairly simple. So we need a recording secretary. Jean, you're recording everything for prosperity, and we'll have a copy of it later. So thank you. Also, now a charge conference, all the legal aspect of it, you're supposed to send out notices, and I think Pastor Rebecca's done this, so everybody knows that this is happening today. Also, anybody can attend, but only members of either Covenant or New Hope, because this is a charge conference of both churches together, can vote. So if you are not a member of either one of those congregations, like my wife in that car over there, she can't vote. So just sit there and take a nap. Okay. So let me read the paragraph, and so you'll know what we're talking about. Let those who consider recommending persons for candidacy as ordained ministers in the United Methodist Church ask themselves the following questions that were first asked by John Wesley at the Third Conference of Methodist Preachers in 1746. So I'm going to read these questions, and you can tell it was written in 1746 by the kind of language. But there's 3 questions. Do they know God is a pardoning God? Have they the love of God abiding in them? Do they desire nothing but God? Are they holy in all manner of conversation? Second, have they gifts as well as grace for the work? Have they a clear, sound understanding, a right judgment of things of God, a just concept of salvation by faith? Do they speak justly, readily, and clearly? 3, have they fruit? Have they been truly convinced of sin and converted to God, and are believers edifying by their preaching? So those are the questions that we've been considering. So it says here, believing that Rebecca and Allis is called of God and is suitable candidate for licensed ministry in the United Methodist Church, the recommending body, you guys here, of the Covenant New Hope, West Seneca Covenant New Hope churches, recommends her for certification as a candidate to the District Committee on Ordained Ministry. In making this recommendation, we attest to the fact that the declared candidate has been a professing member in good standing of the United Methodist Church or a baptized participant of a recognized United Methodist campus ministry or other United Methodist ministry settings for a minimum of 1 year. Has graduated from an accredited high school, received a certificate of equivalency, and has, by written ballot, a 2/3 vote by this body, signed by me. So, I will sign this hunk of paper, but right now, I want you to take out your little ballot, check yes or no, and then the ushers will come around and collect them. pile of ballots someplace?
I didn't.
Jean's, all right, Jean's got the ballots? Okay. Maybe somebody could help Jean, the two of them could count them all out now while we're closing service. Would somebody else? Who'd like to go sit with Jean? Okay. So, Jean, we're going to send somebody with you to count the ballots, yes or no's and whatnot, and so we have two people looking at them, we could get 2/3. So, you guys do the counting, we'll do the singing.
Our closing hymn is an insert. It's Blessed Assurance. Blessed Assurance. May God bless each and every one of you. May you have a joyful day and a joyful life. May you continue to grow in your knowledge and love of Jesus Christ each and every day. Amen. Sorry. That's the benediction. Okay.
register has been accepted.